It's strange how the people you love the most can also make you feel like a stranger in your own life. That was the thought running through my head as I sat alone in my dad's guest room, staring at the acceptance letter that should have made me feel like I was on top of the world. A full-ride scholarship to study abroad. A chance to see more of the world than my quiet little hometown ever could offer me. A chance to become someone bigger, someone who could finally stand tall in her own future without looking back. But the excitement I felt when I first read the letter was now mixed with this heavy pit in my chest, a constant reminder that my mom didn't see this the way I did. She saw it as me running away from her, from my brother, from the family she decided to start over with, one that never quite felt like mine. I used to think my mom was unstoppable. When I was a little girl, I used to watch her march into a room and command attention, her heels clicking against the floor like punctuation marks to every confident word she spoke. Even though she wasn't around much, her career came first. Always, I still idolized her. I told myself she was building something important, something for both of us. That someday she'd have more time for me. That someday we'd be a real family again. But someday never really came. She remarried when I was 15, and by the time I turned 18, she was cradling my newborn brother in her arms, her face glowing in a way it hadn't when she looked at me in years. And somewhere deep down, I started to wonder if I'd been replaced. Tom, her new husband, is nice enough. He dotes on her, makes her laugh, treats her the way she always deserved to be treated. And my brother, God, he's adorable. Tiny little fingers that wrap around yours and don't let go. He smells like baby lotion and innocence, but it's hard to feel like a sister when you're 18 years older than him. It's hard to feel like anything but an outsider watching a family that already feels complete without you. So when the scholarship came through, it felt like the universe was finally handing me my chance to be something more than the girl who always came second. My dad was thrilled when I told him. He even cried a little, which surprised me. Tom was supportive too, clapping me on the back and saying how proud he was. But my mom, she just stared at me for a long moment before forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. At first, I thought she was just worried about me living in another country, worried about the distance, about me being on my own. But then one night she pulled me aside and said what was really on her mind. "You're going to miss everything," she said softly, her eyes shining with something I couldn't quite name. "You're going to miss his first steps, his first words. You'll miss birthdays and holidays, and by the time you come back, it won't be the same. You'll just be some girl he barely knows. You won't be his sister." Her words stung because I knew she meant them. But what she didn't understand, what she couldn't understand, was that I never asked to be his sister in the first place. I love him, of course I do. But I didn't get a say in this new life she built, and now she expected me to sacrifice everything just to fit into it. So I told her the truth. I told her that I never asked for any of this, that I'd spent years waiting for her to choose me, and she never did. That she didn't get to ask me to give up my dreams now, just because she finally decided she wanted to play mom again. The silence that followed was deafening. She looked at me like she didn't even recognize me, like I was a stranger who'd just walked into her house and insulted everything she stood for. I grabbed my backpack and left without another word. I've been staying at my dad's ever since. Some nights I lie awake and stare at the ceiling, wondering if I went too far, if I was too harsh, if I was selfish. But then I think about all the times she missed my school plays because of work. All the times she forgot my birthday because she was too busy. All the nights I cried myself to sleep because she didn't come home. And I remind myself that she made her choices too. My dad tells me I'm not a bad daughter, that I'm not a bad sister, that I'm just someone who wants more for herself, and there's nothing wrong with that. But his words don't make the guilt go away. I keep thinking about her face that night, the way her eyes glistened, the way her hands shook slightly as I walked out the door. I keep wondering if she cried when I left, if she still checks her phone, hoping I'll text her first. And then I wonder if she's already moved on, if she's too busy with her perfect little family to even notice I'm gone. There's a part of me that wants to call her, to tell her I'm sorry, to tell her that even though I'm leaving, it doesn't mean I don't love her, that it doesn't mean I don't love my brother. But every time I pick up the phone, something stops me, because deep down, I know she won't hear me. She's already decided what kind of person I am, and maybe she's right. Maybe I really am selfish. But if choosing myself means being selfish, then maybe that's what I need to be, because I've spent my whole life putting her first. Maybe it's time I finally put myself first for a change. The days at my dad's house started to blur together, each one feeling heavier than the last. At first I thought staying here would make everything easier, that putting some distance between me and my mom would clear my head and help me focus on what I needed to do. But instead, all I could do was sit in this quiet room and replay the last conversation over and over in my mind, picking apart every word I said, wondering if I crossed the line I couldn't uncross. At night, I'd lie awake and stare at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above me, the faint hum filling the silence like a reminder that I was alone. Even though my dad tried to make me feel at home, it wasn't really my home. I kept telling myself that this was temporary, that once I left for school, none of this would matter. But the ache in my chest told a different story. It felt like I cut out a piece of myself and left it behind on her doorstep. Some mornings, I'd wake up and reach for my phone before I even realized what I was doing, my fingers hovering over her contact. I'd type out messages I never sent. I'm Sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just don't know how to be the person you want me to be. But then I'd delete them all, because what good would it do? I'd already made my choice. She'd already made hers. Still, it was impossible to shake the image of her standing in the doorway that night, her eyes glassy and her shoulders slumped in a way I'd never seen before. My mom was never the type to cry in front of anyone, least of all me. But I'd seen something in her face, a crack in the armor, and it haunted me. Part of me wanted to believe she deserved to feel that way, that she'd earned it after all the time she'd put her career, her husband, her new family ahead of me. But another part of me hated myself for being the one who put that look on her face. My dad tried to talk to me about it a few times, but I couldn't bring myself to open up. He'd sit across from me at the kitchen table, his hands folded like he was afraid to push too hard, and he'd say things like, "You don't have to feel guilty for choosing yourself, you know?" But the truth was, I did feel guilty. I felt selfish and ungrateful, like I was abandoning the people who were supposed to mean the most to me. I started avoiding his gaze, keeping my answers short, retreating back into my room whenever the weight of his concern got too heavy. At school, it was easier to pretend everything was fine. I threw myself into my classes, burying myself in homework and scholarship paperwork, telling everyone who asked that I was just busy getting ready for the big move. My friends cheered me on, told me how amazing it was that I'd gotten a full ride, how jealous they were that I'd be living in Europe. I smiled and nodded, pretending their excitement was mine. But every time I thought about actually boarding that plane, my stomach twisted into knots. The worst part was the silence. She hadn't called, not once, not even a text. I'd half expected her to blow up my phone that first night, to send angry messages or leave tearful voicemails begging me to come home, but there was nothing. Just radio silence, like I'd already been erased from her life. Maybe that's what she wanted. Maybe it was easier for her to focus on her perfect little family without me there, to remind her of everything she'd gotten wrong the first time around. One evening, about 2 weeks after the fight, my dad came home from work and found me sitting in the dark. He leaned against the doorframe and watched me for a long moment before finally saying, "You know, it's okay to miss her." I didn't respond at first. I just stared at my hands in my lap, feeling the sting of tears in the back of my throat. Finally, I whispered, "I don't even know if she misses me." He crossed the room and sat next to me, his hand warm on my shoulder. "Of course she does. She just doesn't know how to show it right now." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But the doubt had already taken root, and it was hard to shake. A few days later, I was scrolling through social media when I saw a new post on her page. It was a picture of her, Tom, and my baby brother, all dressed up for some kind of family dinner. She was smiling, really smiling, and in the caption she wrote, "My world, my everything." My chest tightened as I stared at the screen, her words echoing in my head like a taunt. My world, my everything. And there was no sign of me anywhere in that picture. That was when it really hit me. I'd already been replaced. She didn't need me anymore. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about all the times I'd stayed up waiting for her when I was little, how I'd sit on the couch with a blanket wrapped around me, fighting to keep my eyes open just so I could say goodnight when she finally came home. I remembered how she'd pat my head and say, "You're my little girl, always." And now she had someone else to say that to. I buried my face in the pillow and let myself cry, the kind of quiet, broken sobs that left my chest aching. The next morning, my dad found me in the kitchen, nursing a cold cup of coffee. He sat across from me and studied my face for a long time before finally asking, "What do you want to do, kiddo?" I didn't even have to think about it. "I want to go," I said. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "I want to take the scholarship. I want to leave." He nodded, his eyes soft with understanding. "Then that's what you'll do. And you won't look back." But that was easier said than done. A week later, my mom finally called. I almost didn't answer. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribcage. When I picked up, her voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "Hey," she said. I didn't know what to say, so I just muttered hi. There was a long pause before she spoke again. I know you're mad at me, and I probably deserve it, but I wanted to hear your voice." Something inside me cracked at that. I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to tell her how much she hurt me. But all that came out was a choked, "I miss you." I could hear her breath hitch on the other end of the line. "I miss you too," she whispered. We didn't say much after that. Just sat there in silence, listening to each other breathe. Before she hung up, she said, I want you to be happy, even if it means you're far away." I didn't reply. I couldn't, but in that moment, I knew I'd already made my choice. I was going to leave. And no matter how much it hurt, no matter how much guilt I carried with me, I wasn't going to look back. The weeks leading up to my departure moved both too fast and unbearably slow. Each day felt like it carried 100 conflicting emotions: excitement, dread, guilt, determination. Every morning, I'd wake up to the sight of my suitcase propped open at the foot of my bed, already half packed with clothes, books, and little keepsakes. I'd stand there for long moments, just staring at it, willing myself to feel nothing, but the ache in my chest never quite went away. My dad was doing his best to keep me steady. He'd helped me research the best SIM cards to buy overseas, gave me tips about managing jet lag, even went shopping with me for a new carry-on. He didn't say much about my mom, only reminded me gently that this was my choice to make. But the truth was, she was all I thought about. Every night, as I lay in bed staring up at the ceiling, I'd hear her voice in my head, soft and hurt and full of all the things she couldn't bring herself to say out loud. I wanted her to call again, to tell me she understood, to tell me she was proud of me, even if she didn't mean it. But after that first phone call weeks ago, there was nothing. No text, no voicemail, no visit. The silence was its own kind of cruelty. When the day finally came, I almost couldn't do it. Standing in my room, staring at the packed suitcase, I felt like my legs were made of lead. My stomach churned as I imagined myself stepping onto that plane, soaring across an ocean to a new life, leaving everything and everyone behind. My dad came in quietly and placed a hand on my shoulder. "You don't have to be fearless," he said. "You just have to keep moving forward." Those words stuck with me all the way to the airport. The terminal was busy and bright, full of people rushing to their gates, hugging their loved ones goodbye. I felt oddly out of place among them, like I was watching life happen to other people. My dad walked with me all the way to security, carrying my bag and cracking quiet jokes to lighten the mood. But when it was time to say goodbye, he pulled me into a tight hug and held me there for a long moment. "I'm proud of you, kiddo," he murmured into my hair. That was when I started crying. Not big, loud sobs, just quiet, hot tears that slid down my cheeks as I tried to keep my composure. He pulled back, wiped my cheek with his thumb, and gave me one last smile before letting me go. As I walked through security, I kept glancing back at him until he was just a blur in the crowd. Sitting at my gate, waiting to board, I pulled out my phone and stared at my mom's contact. My thumb hovered over the call button, trembling, but I couldn't do it. Not yet. Instead, I boarded the plane, found my seat, and sat there staring out the window as the city fell away beneath me. The flight was long and exhausting. I dozed on and off, my dreams fractured and strange, full of memories of my mom, her smile, her laugh, the way she used to brush my hair when I was little. I woke up once with tears on my cheeks, my heart aching in my chest. When we finally landed, I felt both relieved and hollow. Everything was new and strange. The language, the smell of the air, the way the streets wound like veins through the city. I dragged my suitcase to the student housing office, got my key, and let myself into my tiny room. It was bare and quiet, just a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over the rooftops. I sat on the bed for a long time, just breathing, trying to convince myself I'd made the right choice. Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into my classes. I met other students, explored the city, studied late into the night. On the outside, I seemed fine, thriving, even. But inside, the ache never really left. Every time I saw a mother with her child in the park, or heard someone speaking my language on the street, it hit me all over again. I wanted to call her so many times, but every time I picked up the phone, the words got stuck in my throat. Then, one rainy evening, my phone buzzed with a message from her. Just 4 words. "Do you miss me?" I stared at it for what felt like hours. My fingers hovered over the keys, typing and deleting over and over. Finally, I sent back, "Every day." The reply came quickly. "Me too." That was all. But it was enough to crack something open inside me. The next day, she called. Her voice was soft and hesitant, but warmer than I'd expected. I wanted to hear you," she said. We talked for nearly an hour. About school, about the city, about my little brother, and how fast he was growing. She didn't mention the fight. Neither did I, but when we hung up, she whispered, "I'm proud of you," and it felt like a balm on an old wound. The months passed. I settled into a rhythm. Classes, work, long walks through cobblestone streets. I made friends, built a life. But there were still nights when I lay awake, thinking about her, about what we'd lost, about what we could still salvage. When the semester ended, I flew home for the holidays. My dad picked me up at the airport, and we drove back through the familiar streets. My stomach was in knots the whole way. When we pulled into my mom's driveway, I sat there for a long moment before getting out. She opened the door before I even knocked. For a second, we just stood there, staring at each other. Then she pulled me into her arms and held me tight, whispering, "Welcome home." And for the first time in a long time, I let myself believe it. We didn't fix everything that night. There were still hard conversations to have, still wounds that needed time to heal. But as I sat in the living room later, watching my little brother toddle across the floor, I realized something. I didn't have to choose between my future and my family. I could have both if we were willing to try. So I stayed for a few weeks, soaking up every moment, rebuilding what we'd lost. And when it was time to leave again, I hugged her tight and said, "I'll always come back." She smiled through her tears and whispered, "I'll always be here." And for the first time in a long time, I believed her. As the plane took off, I looked out the window and thought about how far we'd come. I still didn't have all the answers. I still didn't know what the future would bring. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done putting my life on pause. And maybe, just maybe, she was learning to let go enough to let me live it.